Well, I guess I want to have wish everybody a welcome to our panel. We're going to start. And by the way, if you're looking for the panel, Are We There Yet? Traveling Sleuths on the Case, then you are in the right spot. I happen to be author Julie Moffett, and I will be your moderator, but I'm also a participant, so I'll be answering some questions along with the rest of the panel. I'll do a quick, brief intro of all of our panelists, and then we'll talk for about 35 to 40 minutes, leaving several minutes at the end to address any questions that you may have for us. But I did want to let you know that there is a chat box, and I will be monitoring it. So if you have questions that come up as we go along, please take a minute to go ahead and type your question in the box, and I'll try to make sure that we get to it before the end of the panel. And so with no more further ado, I'd like to introduce your panel of authors today. Sara E. Johnson. Sara, you want to wave? Is a mystery writer who spent 9 months exploring wondrous New Zealand. Everywhere she snooped, there was a mystery that needed writing. The Bone Track, Sara's third novel in the Alexa Glock Forensic Mystery Series, is set in New Zealand and came out in February of 2020. The first two novels in the series, The Bones Remember and Molten Mud Murder, were published in 2020 and 2019, respectively, by Poison Pen Press or Sourcebooks. Sara has a BA in journalism and an MA in education from the University of North Carolina. She lives in Durham with her husband and golden doodle. Sara is a graduate of the Durham Citizen Police Academy and is the past president of Triangle Sisters in Crime and a member of the North Carolina Writers Network. So welcome, Sara.
Thank you, Julie.
All right, Rosalie, wave your hand. Rosalie has been lucky enough to be a military brat, I'm one too, a veteran and a military spouse, as this has afforded her the opportunity to travel quite a bit. In addition to living overseas 3 times and in 6 different states, wow, she has been able to visit almost 24 countries. She loves to travel, and when that's not possible, to read and write about different places and times. Her first book, Death Under the Sea, was released in November of 2021 and is book 16 in the Aloha Lagoon series by Gemma Holiday Publishing. She's currently finishing up her second installment in that series and recently got a 3-book deal for her cozy series set in Idaho. Congratulations. She also has a story in the Chesapeake Crimes Magic is Murder anthology coming out soon. Welcome, Rosalie. All right, Maria Hudgins. Wave, Maria. She is originally from Tennessee, but is a longtime Virginia resident. She taught high school science for 30 years before she retired and has been writing full-time for the past 20 years. Since she loves to travel, her books are set in countries she has visited. She also loves ancient history, so the books also tend to deal with archaeology. She has worked on a Neolithic dig in the Isle of Man and a dinosaur dig in Montana that the book Jurassic Park was later based on. An empty nester now, she lives in Hampton, Virginia with her cat, Mitty. Welcome, Maria.
Thank you.
And I, your moderator, as I mentioned earlier, I'm Julie Moffett, and I'm the author of the longtime running Lexi Carmichael mystery series featuring geeks, spies, a nerd herd, and international adventure. I also write a young adult spy mystery series called The White Knights, which is a spinoff of the Lexi Carmichael series, but is aimed at teens and preteens, and also features a cool teenage hacker girl. My books all have mystery, travel, humor, and adventure. And my latest Lexi Carmichael book is set on the reclusive island in Italy, and it was released last September and is called No Escape, and it was book 13 in that series. Book 14 in the series, No Vow Broken, will hopefully be released at the end of this year. Okay, so now that you've met us and know us, we're going to talk a little bit about how and why we incorporate travel into our mysteries. So here's the first question, and I guess I'll start with you, Sara. What has made you decide to have a traveling sleuth in your stories?
Well, it all happened because my husband and I spent that 9 months in New Zealand. And like you said in my intro, everywhere I looked, there was a murder that needed to be written about. So I chose New Zealand, and my main character is a forensic odontologist, and she is a traveling forensic investigator. So lots of the little towns, adorable little towns in New Zealand, don't have a big enough police department or anything to have a forensic. So Alexa Glock gets to travel all over New Zealand and therefore so do my readers. And it's just, it's a place that's just so ruggedly beautiful. I just love taking readers to these remote locations. And people I believe it sells books. People like reading about New Zealand. So that's why I chose it.
Great. Rosalie?
Because I got a contract.
It works.
I heard they let us know about an opportunity that Gemma Halliday was looking for more writers for her Aloha Lagoon. And I decided to give it a shot, and I threw my name in. There's 9 authors for the now 17 books, and I'll be doing the 18th as well. And my protagonist, Kiki, she is originally from New York, a recovering socialite, if you will. And she has been traveling around the world diving, avoiding being an adult. So she lands in Aloha Lagoon, which is in Kauai, and of course, finds murder and needs to fix it because they assume it's her, as they always do. And so that's how she ends up staying in Kauai for now. So, but she was traveling a lot before that. And I have to show my t-shirt.
Nice. Perfect. All right. Thank you. Maria, how about you?
Okay, my protagonist is Dotsie Lamb. She's a former school teacher, a whole lot like me, but she's actually based on a woman that I used to teach with who's a whole lot nicer than me. And so traveling, though, basing it on traveling, Pat, the real protagonist, also loves to travel just as I do. And traveling sets you up for the beginning of a good plot already. Assuming that you are traveling with some friends, they're probably some of your best friends or your family, so they will fit right in. And then along the way, you're going to meet some people who are going to be very different from anyone, So there's some other characters you've got. So you sort of got your cast of characters already built. And then there's the setting, which you can make as no matter where you pick, it's bound to be kind of interesting and take the reader to another place.
Yeah, I agree too. I think one of the reasons that I love to travel is I also am a military brat. So I've lived all over the world. I went to high school in Japan. I went to college in Poland. I've just been everywhere. And so I think for me, it's because I am curious about the world. And so my protagonist is also curious about the world, which in a way for her is very different because she's very much of an introvert. So this is taking her way out of her comfort zone. She's a nerd who gets mixed up in international intrigue and spies. And so it's just this kind of, it's kind of like the James Bond, but with, your brain. She doesn't use any guns. She uses her brains to solve the day and get the bad guys and her computer. That's basically what she uses. So same kind of thing, different. I think with all of us traveling, we're curious about other places and cultures and things like that. So we do have one question from the audience. And so let's start with Rosalie on this one. The question is from Millicent, and she asks, when do you include real locations versus fictionalized locations?
Oh, you had to start with me. So
great question.
Kauai, I'm sorry.
I said it was a great question, by the way. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it is. It's so my only published book is Kauai, and I'd actually been there, and the reason I had pitched a girl that dives is because I had dived there. I dove there. And so I thought going to Kauai, that'd be the perfect thing to do there. And what was the question?
The question is why do you choose a real place versus fictionalized place?
Oh, the real place.
Okay. Fictional place.
Okay, for this one, it is Aloha Lagoon itself is a fictional resort on Kauai, which is real. And so I tried to put as much reality of what I knew of Kauai in there. The chickens they have all those feral chickens and
Yeah.
details about diving that, you can do. But then the Aloha Lagoon Resort was already established by these 9 other authors. So I have those things to pull in. So I didn't have to create the fictionalized part myself.
Yeah.
My next series is set in my original hometown, but of course I call it something else. And I fictionalize it quite a bit so that I don't ruffle any feathers and make everyone think I think they're killers and things like that. So yeah, you have to do both.
Does anybody else want to, Sarah or Maria, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so far my books have been set in real places and places that I visited. But I make up like the second book deals with shark cage diving. So we went to Stewart Island because it's a great hangout for the great white sharks, but I myself did not go shark cage diving. So it's kind of a combination of real locations with fictional, plots.
Right. How about you, Maria?
I also deal strictly with real places, and because that's what people want to read about, is places that maybe they'll get to go sometime. But I, of course, change the names of the characters, the people. And sometimes when you get right down to like in the book set in Scotland, everything was real right down to the name of the castle where they stayed. So I made up a new name for the castle. Because I couldn't put it in somebody else's castle. But basically, everything is true up to the point where I have to change things rather than get sued.
Right, true. Yeah, and I too, I write about real places, obviously. My character has been to anywhere from Egypt to Hollywood to Papua New Guinea, I mean, it's just every imaginable location. And yet the things that are there are usually made up hotels or made up locations,
Right.
But I do keep the towns and the cities the same. So the book I wrote 2 books ago was set in the Brazilian rainforest. And so I did try to find a location there that would, that the town that would and stuff. So it's real, but still partly fictional as well.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun research.
It is.
It is fun to research, yes. Okay, so how about we'll start with Maria for this one. How does the travel piece of your story affect the plot or drive the plot, for example?
I liked your question. You put, do you start with the plot, the plot, or do you start with the place? And I don't know, but I basically, I go there usually without an idea. And I don't force it, but by the time I get home, I have some ideas, and then the plot grows out of that. I can't say that the plot is not exactly based on the setting, but if it weren't for the setting, the plot wouldn't have happened.
How about you, Sarah? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I definitely start with place. Definitely these places, and then these places are rife with controversy, like back to my second book with the shark cage diving. Oh, it's bringing in the tourists, but the local people, there's only 400 people that live on this island. They think it's making the sharks more aggressive. So, I mean, I had to base a plot around something that was really happening, but I always start with place. The place just seems to have controversy around it that makes for a good plot.
How about you, Rosalie?
Well, I look at plot as, I mean, I've heard it multiple times today in the other panels too, that plot location is one of the characters, and pretty much. So I think I look at location first and then think of the plot from there. And for my protagonist, the plot was driven by the travel aspect, in that she was, separated from all her support system. And so that definitely helped drive that.
That's kind of interesting. All your answers are so different and so interesting. I'm actually 50-50. believe it or
Mhm.
not. Yeah, I sometimes I will have the plot and then sometimes I'll have the location. For example, I knew I wanted to write a book about her in my character, Lexi Carmichael, in Hollywood. So I based her getting mixed up in a reality TV show that featured geeks. And so she was actually there to stop some hacking that was happening on the online voting, and she gets mixed up with all this stuff. And so that was kind of like a combination of the two.
Mhm.
Then I had a plot for when I ended up in the rainforest. I just had a plot that I had in mind to deal with vaccines. This was before COVID. I just want everybody
Wow.
to know that the book came out came out 2 weeks after COVID hit, but it had been written a year already in advance, but it was crazy. But anyway, I was looking for a story, a place to set the vaccine story, and I ended up deciding to do it in the rainforest of Brazil. And so it depends. Like sometimes I have the
Yeah.
location, sometimes I have the plot. So I guess it's about 50-50 for me.
Mhm.
But it's interesting how that drives your creative process. So I think that's
Mhm.
okay. We have another question from the audience, and they ask, do you want your characters to fight with the location or just go with the location and how it presents itself and then work around it? So Sarah, you want to start with that?
Well, definitely in the book that just came out, The Bone Track, my main character, she's not a hiker and she's taking this hiking trip. So she is fighting with the location the whole way. The Milford Track has these my husband and I did this. It's 3 nights, 4-day backpacking trip through just the most beautiful scenery you've ever seen, but you are crossing these swollen rivers on these swing bridges. And so Alexa is she's terrified. There's the rain she's battling. There's just, the indifference of Mother Nature that she's battling the whole time. And there's other little ways that she battles with the location. She doesn't always understand the language. What is somebody's going out on the deck and she's like, deck, what's that? And, they're going out on the deck and they say sex for 6. And she's always, why are all these people talking about sex when they're just talking about numbers? And so there's lots of ways. And I think that's really fun to put an American in a foreign land and to play the fish out of water card. That's been a lot of fun. When I first wrote the series, I had her be a Kiwi, and an agent said, no, I think it would be so much more fun to have her be a fish out of water. And that was like the best writing advice I ever got.
Great.
Mhm.
Maria, you have any thoughts?
Yes, I was just wondering, while Sarah was talking, since we all use foreign locations, how much foreign language do you leave in? I try to make it minimal, just enough that they know that my reader knows what they're saying without me doing a bunch of translating, which is really boring, and have it as much stick to English as I can. But since my protagonist is generally traveling with a group of English speakers, it's a little easier to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
we have another question from the audience. How do you choose the relationship between the murdered and the sleuth? Rosalie, you want to start?
In Kiki's case, it needed to be someone that she would take the blame for. So in her case, she's kind of hiding out from her parents and they send a PI after her. So he's this, New York guy, and he, very, rough around the edges. And he's ends up being her dive partner, and she knows right away that it's not really someone she wants to be around. And then he lets it, tells her, by the way, I'm here to take you back to your parents. And then the next day they find him under the sea, hence the death under the sea. So there had to be a relationship there for her being the tourist as well, to have a connection to another tourist and not just that they were from New York.
Right.
And so there had to be some kind of reason that she'd want to kill him, which, obviously she didn't. But yeah.
Yeah, I personally don't always have a murder. Mine are not always murder mysteries per se. Mine are often thriller kind of mysteries that have to be figured out, or bad guys that have to be captured, not necessarily a murder to be solved. But I think you always have to, I think stories are stronger when you can tie in the villain or the murdered or the murderer, you know, that when you tie that all so nicely together, I think it makes it fun or fun for everyone to figure it out. So I think
that was a good question. I hadn't really thought about that before, but Alexa Glock doesn't generally have a relationship with the first murder victim because it's very much like a police procedural, but generally there's a second murder. And by that time, you know, whether she's hiking with this person or shark cage diving with this person, she has developed a relationship.
I think I like the idea of not feeling like you have to have a murder as you don't, you know, I like that. But on the other hand, you have to have a problem that's as serious as murder. You can't have a whole story built around somebody's dog getting lost or anything like that. You need to have a serious problem.
Yeah, absolutely. Agreed. All right, we have another question from the audience. When we travel, are there a few specific things you always take note of for possible use as details for location or the types of people you encounter? So,
Smells.
What was that? Smells?
Smells. Yeah. And sounds that you don't normally hear. Like in Istanbul, you hear the call to prayer 5 times a day, and then it sort of starts to mean Istanbul to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, the food, of course, the food.
Yes.
The cultural, the customs, you know, the specific and unique customs and cultures and food. Smells, as like you said, but not, you know, mostly food usually, but it could also be streets if, you know, something's not pleasant, or if something's pleasant, you know, that kind of stuff as well. Yeah, I mean,
sorry.
Oh no, go ahead, please go.
I hadn't thought about the smells before, but that's true. I like to focus on little details like that too. Like if you've ever noticed the manhole covers in some of the foreign cities, some of them are just, they're like art. It's like, that's amazing. And you know, just little things that take your reader there.
Right.
Take them there.
Yes. I like to play up the birds in New Zealand. They're just so different from the birds we have anywhere else. And, you know, so I always like to incorporate birds in each of my novels.
And so the next question, another one from the audience is, do you always visit your locations or do you ever rely on just research? So I will start with that one because I wrote about, I think it was 2017, I wrote a book set in Egypt, and I had never been to Egypt. Actually, I've never been to the rainforest either, but I wrote a book on that too. But this last December, I finally got my chance to go to Egypt. And so I got to see did I nail it or did I not nail it? So I was pretty happy that I actually felt like I really captured a lot of the stuff, like the research was on, but there were a few little things I would have tweaked had I visited before then, but it wasn't that substantial. So so I do both. I've been to places I've written about, and I've written about places I haven't been to. So for me, it's a mixed bag. I don't know how about you guys?
I always go. I could almost say that I always go first, but there are a couple of things in my stories that I haven't actually done. Like I've written 2 books set in Istanbul, and one of them has a lot to do with the train that goes to Konya. And I've never actually ridden on that train, but I did go to the train station and take pictures of the door locks and things like that.
Wow.
So get that right.
So far, my books, and I have a contract for 3 more, and I have ideas for them. So far, I've been to those places in New Zealand.
Yeah.
That's nice. Okay, great. We have another question from the audience. Is there a dream location you'd like to write about?
Mm.
I wouldn't mind writing about New Zealand.
I know.
I mean, I gotta get on that. That's the nice thing too. If you play
Yeah.
this right, you can also, as an author, you can take it off on your taxes as research.
That's right.
Yes.
All in the name of research. Yes, it's
Yes.
tax deduction. So is there a other dream location?
Well, I have written two books that are set in Egypt, but I still want to go. I had it all set and paid for and everything to go back to Egypt last spring, and then of course the pandemic kept me.
Yeah.
But I still want to do that because I have some ideas about that, doing a river boat, a Nile River.
I just took it. It was awesome.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
So,
when I leave Alexa Glock in New Zealand behind, I'd like to set a mystery series in the United States, and I'm playing around with maybe Vermont as a place, but I'm not quite sure where it would be. I think Durham is too boring.
Oh no.
Oh, okay. We have another question from the audience. And this one is from Helen. And she says, I wrote a novel set in Paris with 4 friends, and most of the experiences are autobiographical with some fiction. In one scene, I was accosted by a Middle Eastern man. In another scene, I was treated poorly because I was a woman. Is political correctness a problem in such a manuscript?
I think you have the freedom to treat it however you want.
Mhm.
People will deal with it, I think.
Yeah, I think that's probably about the.
You don't have to feel too hemmed in by doing what's politically correct. You can step out of the boundaries and people will accept it, I think.
Somebody said Rosalie, but there's I guess they want Rosalie to answer this question. So Rosalie.
So answer that one. About political correctness, she wants me to answer that one.
I don't know. I don't know if they're just asking that or.
Oh, good. I will, Millicent.
I'm gonna find you. No. Political correctness. In that case, being treated poorly because you're a woman in a Middle Eastern country, is it actually political correctness? I think it's, so I know people that have gone to Saudi Arabia or something with the military, and they couldn't go into the public spaces without having a man with them. So it's, to me, that's not necessarily political correctness. That's more like facts, that.
Oh, she was the person who wrote the question said this was taking place in Paris. So.
In Paris as
Yeah.
well. Okay.
Yeah.
It's not Saudi, but I'm still not sure that would be political correctness because we know that happens.
I will say in my books that I have a lot of Maori culture in the books, and I do have a sensitivity reader to make sure I get it right and represent the Maori people the right way. And, I've messed up on some little things, and I was really glad that I had somebody read over the work. And also, since mine are forensic books, I have forensic experts read them over to tell me, what I got wrong and help me. So I think we want to be real sensitive to the culture of the places that we write about.
Agreed. Okay, so I guess the question is, are you a big traveler yourself? I mean, do you like to travel, or are you more of, I'd rather be an armchair traveler? I think we all kind of know the answer to this, but Rosalie, why don't you start us off?
I love to travel. The last trip I did before COVID was Ireland, and it was a writer's tour with other writers, not a tour of books, but and I just really love traveling, and I do. But I also like to read books about other places and other times, just as an escape and to go there in your mind. Both are good in my mind. The best thing would be read a book about somewhere else while you're on a plane going there. And that's
All right. Okay, Okay, so here's another question for the panel. What is the most unique place you've ever traveled?
Oh,
What would you consider?
I have-
Somebody mentioned that her editor lives in Ireland, by the way.
Yeah.
I think the Isle of Man in the Irish Sea. I spent a part of a summer there working on a dig,
Mhm.
and
Wow.
lived in a house with a family. That was sort of different. Yeah.
How
I've
about
actually been to the Azores. The
Oh,
Azores,
Wow.
which is in the middle of the Atlantic
Wow.
Ocean. I've also been to Malta and Tunisia, and that's
Wow.
all thanks to my sibling who was in the military. So.
Uh-huh.
Wow, you guys have traveled way more than me. I think the most remote place I've ever been is New Zealand, and maybe it was
This is
Stewart
neat.
Island that hangs off the bottom of the South Island, and you have to cross this crazy, scary, roaring 40s straight to get there. It's like roller coaster waves, and that was very remote. Probably the closest I'll ever get to Antarctica.
mhm.
Cool.
I actually went to high school in Okinawa, Japan.
Oh,
And
wow.
so we traveled quite a bit in Asia while I was there, which was awesome. But yeah, I mean, I think one of the most unique places I ever visited, besides I just went to Egypt, while we were in Egypt, we actually took a trip out to a Nubian village, a Nubian African village. And it was so cool. I mean, it was like the most authentic, kind of genuine travel experience I've ever had. It was just so awesome.
Wow.
So that was pretty cool for me. I have to think about how I'm going to get that into a book. So, okay, we have another question here. It said, I've been to 31 countries and would love to travel with writers. Can you recommend a group that does this?
a writers group?
Yeah, writers travel group. I know of writers group that meet in a location that's abroad. Like there's a group that meets in this castle in Italy every year. I forgot what it's called. I'd have to look it
Sign
up.
me up.
Yeah,
Yeah, that
I know,
was-
right? I'm like, woo. So, but actually traveling around, I don't know, but I think there's a lot of groups that have writers retreats in various various areas. So,
Rosalie, did you just say that you experienced one?
Well, it was like a tour that we didn't know each other. So I mean, a few of them
Uh-huh.
did, which was they came together.
If you go to London, they have a lot of tours, walking tours where you have the literary London tour, you've got the Sherlock Holmes tour, you've got tours that you could do every night for a week. They're all fun and they're taught by really knowledgeable people.
Yeah, you just Google and make sure you research to make sure it's a legit one, of course.
yeah. Somebody just wrote, I have 2 degrees in cultural anthropology, so I'm loving y'all.
That's great.
Great. Okay, another question. Let's see. Why do you think readers enjoy reading books where the sleuth is traveling?
Yeah.
I think you're taking them to another world,
Mhm.
and if you well, of course, it could be a boring other world, but, really just to take, that's why I read, is to be taken out of my surroundings and to feel like I've gone somewhere. So travel is ideal for that.
Yeah. And not to be pedantic, but every time I read a book that's set in a place I've not been, I learn so much. So that's what I love. I love to be entertained and I love to learn about new places.
I agree.
Yeah, and I think that I mentioned it earlier that, I think readers. That's my thing. I'm sorry.
Wait now.
It was off, but for some reason it's family, so it comes through no matter what.
Okay.
So I just hung up on my mother, but sorry about that. Anyway, so what I was going to say was that I think that we're curious about the world around us, and I think readers are also curious. And so I think when I read books that would take me to places I haven't been before, it sort of inspires me
Mhm.
It inspires me. It makes me feel more creative. I feel like when I see more of the world, I become sort of a better person because I have
Right.
new perspectives. I have new knowledge. I have, it kind of feeds my wanderlust, especially
Yeah,
in these times where it's not so easy to travel anymore. So
that's right.
hoping that's passing, but yeah. So that's kind of my thinking on that. Rosalie, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I agree with everyone else. I read to get away from the mundane life, and the better the adventure, the better.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So another question. Are there any forbidden locations or places you would not write about?
I never did think of an answer for this one.
Yeah, all I thought about was a forbidden place would be a place that doesn't excite me.
I would not go to Russia right now.
I mean, I don't think any place. I think the second you say forbidden, then suddenly I'm interested. I hate to say it,
Right,
but
exactly.
I'm like, oh yeah, what's forbidden? I'm ready. I'm there. So I'm like the opposite there, but yeah, I guess if there were places that I wouldn't write about, I guess it would be places, I guess I'm just personally, like somebody said, I'm just personally not that interested in that
Right.
region or that area or that,
Mhm.
or I've already been there,
Uh-huh.
or I've already kind of been there, done that, not going to do it again. But I don't think for me, anything's off limits. So, and I think that would be kind of interesting thing. So anyway, okay. Let's see, what else do we have here? Okay. So, how do you incorporate customs and cultural things in your stories? Like, is it just research and then you just kind of, like you were saying kind of earlier, the fish out of water, or do you kind of, do you do all that research ahead of time so that you can incorporate it into the story, or what's kind of?
Wow, the Maori culture just keeps showing up in all my books, and it's so interesting, and the reverence they have for the land is beautiful. But in the shark cage diving book, the Maori free dive off Stewart Island for Paua, for abalone, and so the shark cage tourism was interfering with their way of earning money from the Paua and the food that they hold dear. In my latest book, Greenstone, Greenstone is beautiful like jade that's only found in New Zealand. And the Maori have the rights to mining it, but other people don't think that's fair. They think the greenstone that's in the rivers should be for anybody. So there's this tension already built in all my books because of the Maori customs, and I've had a really good time exploring that.
Yeah.
Maria or Rosalie, do you have anything to add?
I decided if I should talk with mine, and they're in Hawaii, of course, and there is different things in Hawaiian culture. I slip in, little mentions of like the chickens, like I said before, or Hawaiian words. And there's a fun one, and it's like this long, and it's their word for the reef triggerfish, and it's like, I'm not even going to try to say it. And
I know how to
I
say it.
make fun about people trying to say it, and it's yes, that one.
Oh my gosh.
That's why I like to slip in.
That's a fish that lives in Hawaii.
I like to slip in cultural things
Yeah.
so that they can learn about the culture. But the series itself doesn't dive too deeply into it. So I keep it light, like the other books in the series.
I would say that the place I would least like to go would be to Antarctica. But a friend of mine who's another mystery writer wrote a story that's all based on Antarctica, and it's fascinating.
Wow.
Didn't quite make me want to go, but it was fascinating. I mean, because they live inside all the time,
That would be a true closed room.
Yes,
Yes,
it
right,
was.
Or locked room.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah, I
Like
think
that
also,
idea.
yeah, I think also that that's one of my favorite parts of writing about a different place is that I love to dive head deep. Like I don't know what's going on in the rainforest. I don't know anything about the
Mhm.
tribes in the rainforest. I don't know about all of these things. I don't know about the customs and the cultures. And so I just love to write all these little tidbits down that I
Mhm.
like to put into the stories. And so and that goes with anything, whether it's about, you know, whether it's set in Egypt, whether it's set in the rainforest, whether it's set in Hollywood, even, you know, what's unique about that place?
Right.
What's unique about that culture of, even if it's the same place, you know, things are different in Hollywood in certain ways, you know, the way you drive your car or the way you do say whatever and stuff like that. So it's kind of fun. I think that's a fun part.
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay, so another question. What is your favorite thing about being an author?
Ooh, the freedom, because you can do anything you want. As long as you make a little money.
I didn't want to be judged.
But you don't have to make money. You can sell nothing. Right.
Well, I've retired from teaching, and you know, I get up every day so excited. I dream about my characters at night. I solve plot problems at night, and I get up, and it's hard work, but it's so engaging.
I was going to say, I don't want anyone to, you know, call my doctor, but it's to get the voices out of my head.
Yes.
Yeah.
All these stories going on, and like you said, you lay there at night and you have conversations with people that don't exist, and then you know, I try to write them down on my phone and then work them into a book. But yeah, it's kind of an urge that needs to be fulfilled.
Yeah.
I wonder what is everybody else's writing schedule? Do you start early in the morning or write all day?
I have a full-time job.
Wow, Julie.
So
I
mine is
admire
always
you.
after dinner or on the
Wow.
weekends. Yeah. So that's when I get my stuff done.
See, I'm retired, so I get up early, and then when I can quit before lunchtime, I'm finished.
I have retirement envy. Oh.
Yeah.
I know. You know, I have these contracts now, and I know authors do this all the time where they write more than one book a year, but my hours have increased because I'm trying to meet these deadlines now. So I'm more like working morning and afternoon now to meet those deadlines.
Yeah. Okay, we have a couple more questions. Let's see. Charlene is asking us, if we're not able to visit the location, how do we find our research material?
Google.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, even when I go to a place, I still have to Google a lot of things when I get home that I didn't know I would need
That's
to
right.
know.
Yeah, I think the other thing besides Google, which is thank God for Google, and my nephew works at Google, so thankful for him. But I think also is I sometimes have friends in the area, so I will ask them questions, you know, like I have a friend that lives in Egypt, and I'll say, hey, you know, what's this custom or what's this culture? Would, you know, what does it mean if somebody would do this or whatever? And, you know, so that I think you can have a network of people, and also writers often ask other writers questions, especially when it comes to not just travel, but like forensic research or police procedure or, you know, legal questions. I mean, we have our networks of each other's of writers and, you know, and also friends. And so we rely, or at least I certainly rely on all of those questions. I was a former journalist as well. And so I sometimes I added questions about some things. I actually called a doctor and asked if I could interview him.
Yeah.
So we
agree.
We use everything we can.
Yeah, I think using experts, you know, reaching out to experts, and, you know, I'd say 50-50, they'll agree to help you.
Yeah, And it does make it more authentic and more
Mhm.
genuine, because you will get somebody who knows about that scuba diving thing that you forgot about, you know, that you will get an email that says, what?
Yes.
You know, or
You
whatever.
ask your friends or family, and I had
Right.
to ask someone, what do they drink when it's hot?
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know, when you're not like a tourist drinking a Dr. Pepper, what do you
Right.
the natives drink when they're
Right.
hot? So
We have another question. Somebody saying, did we have a hard time concentrating and writing these past 2 years?
Oh, yes. I think this pandemic was not good for my ideas, because my ideas are out there where I'm traveling.
Yeah.
it's a good question.
It's been horrific. Honestly, for
Aw.
me, I felt, I've been writing. I published my first book in 1993. And I think the 2020 was the year I had the strongest urge not to write. Like
Wow.
I had to make myself, like, I love to write, and, you know, it's like something I really enjoy. And in 2020, when the pandemic hit and all this stuff went crazy, and I was homeschooling and everything,
Wow.
and top of the job and everything, it was just too much. It was just too much. But you know, writers, we have to put our butts in the chair and we bring our game, whether we're able to concentrate or not. And I think that's for me. I don't know, Rosalie, what about you?
Well, I have to, I admit the pandemic time frame was actually really good for me, because that's when I got my agent and my first contracts and stuff was 2020. So 2020, I can't complain. I liked having all my people at home with me and knowing where everyone was. But yes, mentally it was difficult to focus.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
questioner, I can't get the question to go up, but he might have meant, or she might have meant the traveling aspect. I'm not sure. Obviously we didn't do that.
It's a good point. Yeah.
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 Okay, I think, here we go. We have 2 more questions. Okay, one question is, will you bring the pandemic into any of your future books?
Oh, I don't think so.
Alexa is shaking hands, doing the fist bump now in the book that I'm
Yeah.
writing now. So I'm kind of bringing it in, not with a capital P, but a lowercase p, if that makes sense.
Well,
Like,
I've written about a plague and a pandemic in 2 of the books. In fact, just yesterday, I got an email from somebody who read the Egypt book and said, did you know that? And I'm like, no, I did not. It was just called What If. It's the writer's game of what if. I did not know that we were going to be in a pandemic. But so I think that's enough. I don't think I'd bring it in anymore. So somebody said, please don't do that. Don't write pandemic stories.
yeah, I know.
And then here's another question. Can we talk about how much time it takes to write a book? How long does it take you guys to write books?
Once I'm started, about 3 to 4 months.
Wow.
How long is your book? How many words?
Oh, they go 80, 90,000 words, stuff like that. So it's I'm not writing 200,000 or anything.
How about you, Rosalie?
It depends if I'm in the binge, writing. The Aloha Lagoon books are relatively short compared to the industry standard, I think. But it's still maybe 2-3 months to write it, and then all the self-editing. The longer ones, they're going to take a little longer, obviously. And I tend to write short, so I have a agony when it comes to the first draft is done, and you're like, well, you're way too short, and then that takes another couple of weeks to beef it up. And
How about you, Sarah?
Yeah, it's I'm like I said, I'm on that year treadmill now, and so I don't think a year is enough time, but that's what's happening now.
Yeah, I'm about 8, 9, anywhere from 8 months to a year, because I do have a full-time job, and I'm a single mom, and I'm a teenager. So if you come to Suffolk next time when we're in person, you'll probably meet him, because I drag him along and make him wear a t-shirt that says, ask me about my mom's book. So
Oh, I love it.
Okay.
Somebody just said that they love Maria, they love your cat, and of course they want
Yes.
attention when you're busy. They want your attention. So,
She wants to be on TV, I think.
Yes.
but anyway, I think we are at our time's limit. So I would like to say thank you so much to all of our panelists, Sarah, Rosalie, Maria. You guys
Yeah.
are wonderful.
Thank you.
I wish you the best of luck. Sell oodles and oodles of books, and everybody that's listening, please go buy their books. I know they're wonderful. So thank you so much for coming today, and hopefully we'll see you in person.
Yeah.
Hopefully next year.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Julie.
Yeah, Julie, you did a great job. Thank
Yes.
you. This
You
is
guys-
such fun, everybody.
Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much for coming, everybody. Bye-bye.
Safe travels.